Is Harvey Weinstein about to be arrested? Law enforcement officials tell NBC News there is, in fact, enough evidence to arrest Weinstein right now. And they say it is up to, yeah, there you go. They say it's now in the hands of Manhattan DA Cy Vance to issue the arrest warrant. So why hasn't he? Mr. Vance, why not? We have two guests joining us in a moment to talk about this reporting. But first, sources tell NBC News the NYPD is in the midst of 5 separate sexual assault investigations involving Weinstein. Remember, a lot of the claims were out of time, out of the statute of limitations, but they've got 5 that are within it. 2 of which police say, in their view, involve strong enough claims to move forward with an arrest. One of those is that of movie actress Lucia Evans. According to Evans, she met Weinstein in 2004 at a Manhattan night spot when she was just a college student. And that's where she says Weinstein offered to help her with her career. The 2 later had a daytime meeting at his office, which is where Evans says Weinstein forced her to perform oral sex. Evans recounted this story to Ronan Farrow last year in the New Yorker magazine. Weinstein has repeatedly denied all allegations of non-consensual sex. We reached out to his attorney, and this is what he had to say, quote, "I have been assured that the filing of criminal charges against Mr. Weinstein has not been authorized, and his arrest is not imminent, and my client maintains his innocence." And yet police officials are reportedly fed up, believing that there's enough for an arrest right now. And as I say, the question is, why not? So where is it? Joining us now to discuss it, lawyer Wendy Murphy and NBC New York's chief investigative reporter Jonathan Dienst. Welcome to you both. Jonathan, let's start with you. So you've been covering this case since the beginning, and now there appears to be a divide between the NYPD and the DA. Where does the investigation stand right now?
It actually seems they're getting closer. Right now, the NYPD remains of the view that Harvey Weinstein can be arrested, and if he was in New York right now, they would arrest him. But because he's not, they need an arrest warrant issued through the DA's office, and that deals with the Lucia Evans case and the Paz de la Huerta case. They think
Paz de la Huerta is the other actress.
Yes, so they believe that they can charge in both those cases, and they believe the DA can move forward. We're told the DA's office has perhaps one more meeting set with these alleged victims to go over the cases and move forward, and then a decision will be made whether to move forward with the grand jury. We've seen this before. We were a few months ago. The police were confident a grand jury was going to be convened and things were going to move forward. Now it appears they have established more evidence, and Ms. Evans' case they find very credible. De la Huerta they believe as well. On top of that, there are 3 other cases. What are these 3 other cases? These are cases of women who apparently met with Mr. Weinstein, and they claim it was have a sexual affair with me or you don't get a job, and that they, as a result, consented. That is their claim. The question is, how do they fit that into a criminal charge? Because under New York state law, the charges are very much about physical assault, forcible sexual assault. So it's a circle, and they're trying to figure out if they can fit into the square.
It's like consent under duress.
Right. So they're trying to figure out, is there a crime there that they can charge? And those are the 3 other cases they're looking at.
Here's my question, because one of the cops who spoke to the Daily Beast went on the record by saying the DA prosecutes subway gropers with far less evidence than they have in these cases. And so all eyes now are on Cy Vance, who has received campaign donations from some of Harvey Weinstein's lawyers. And there are questions about whether he's slow-rolling this for some reason other than the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put those 2 things together. Almost $200,000 in campaign donations since 2009 from the law firm that is representing Harvey Weinstein, donations to Cy Vance's campaign. The public has a right to know whether there's any there. Are you declining to move forward because you got a lot of money from his law firm?
Or because he has a lot of money and you're scared? Because we want our public officials to be brave.
Yeah, I mean, and the bottom line is we're supposed to have a blind justice system where the rich and the poor are treated alike. Yep. A case like this, I think, makes people cynical and suspicious. Is that really how it goes? It's a little bit like the Cosby case in terms of the numbers and the public thinking, how can a man like this not be held accountable in a court of law? But having said that, there are 2 things I think that are problematic, and Jonathan referenced one. The law in New York stinks. It's just terrible on violence against women, right? It's terrible. And the number one reason for that is that force is required to prove most sex crimes, not all. Force is not required to prove a misdemeanor sexual assault. So it could be that we end up with a misdemeanor charge, which is better than nothing. But if force is required, a lot of these cases against him didn't require force.
It's
because
so close-minded, right?
It was coercive, but coerce is not force.
Exactly. So duress, like I'm going to hurt your child unless you do this, or you're never going to work again. You can't support yourself unless you do this. That is not consent. That's not consent at all. What about Cy Vance? Because now there appears, you tell me, but from what I read, the chief of detective, Robert Boyce, came out and said it's going very, very well. This is the chief of detectives. Again, this is at the cop level. And when he was asked when are we going to see an arrest of Harvey Weinstein, he said, ask Vance, ask him. And there's a question about whether now the cops and the DA are ticked off at one another because the DA's not doing to Harvey what he would do with somebody on the subway who did one of the upskirt situations.
In fairness, you have to remember this is the DA's office that had to handle the Dominic Strauss-Kahn case, and that did not end very well. Nonetheless, the question is, do you have a chargeable case? Do you have proof beyond a reasonable doubt? A lot of these cases date some time. In fairness to Mr. Vance's office, they have reformed the way they deal with campaign contributions. Since moving forward, he's a stand-up guy. He has said repeatedly they're taking a hard look at this. I think they're trying to dot every I, cross every T. And, Mr. Brofman is an outstanding defense lawyer.
That's Harvey's lawyer.
And
whose partner used to be partners with Cy Vance, right? Used to be.
I believe his wife is. His wife works in that office there, but there's the separation wall there in a case like this. Nonetheless, I know that DA's office is taking a very hard look at this, and they are trying to find a way that not only if they bring it forward that they are going to win that case. But
there are no guarantees in the law. There aren't. Wendy, you know this. There are no guarantees. Even if he brings the case, he could lose.
And that's okay. A prosecutor shouldn't decline to file charges because he's afraid of losing. Justice means being heard and holding someone to account. Win or lose, if he believes those women, move forward. Move forward. And I love the fact that the police are, in a sense, calling him out for not doing the right thing. They see, and they are professionals, they see a case here. How can a prosecutor not see a case here? Police are held to the same standards of probable cause and whether they think the case is provable. So really, you're talking about a politician. Cy Vance is an elected official whose salary, by the way, is paid for by you, the people. So
he does have to believe that he can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
The ethics laws require you can't just do it to make people happy.
No. But if he believes the women, and the police say the evidence is there to make the charge.
And the DA's office, there's sources in the DA's office who have gone to reporters saying, we feel like we can make this case. So that's why I say all eyes are on the DA, Cy Vance.
And that is where it is going. I believe in the next week to 2 weeks, there's going to be a determination made if these meetings go forward. If Ms. Evans and Mr. Huerta come to New York and have this final meeting with the DA's office, and everyone is satisfied that their stories are credible and that they will hold, the question is a matter of when that grand jury gets convened and whether, as a strategy, they have the two women come together because there's a force in numbers, or whether they believe one woman's case is a lot stronger than the other, and we're going to try them separately.
First. So there's 5 pending cases in New York they're looking at. There's 5 in LA/Beverly Hills that they're looking at. There's 10 in England that they're looking at. Criminal. This doesn't count all the numbers. There's a potential criminal case. Can I just quick question? So he's not in New York. He doesn't want to be arrested, so he's not coming back to New York. If they issue an arrest warrant, like they can go get him wherever he is in the United States.
Or even if he's in a foreign country, you can use extradition and rendition laws to get him. Absolutely easy. And I have a good idea about how to bring in lots of the other victims as part of the prosecution. Charge him with a hate crime. Under New York law, if he targets women for violence, it all becomes relevant. They can all testify. Not all states have gender as a category for hate crimes prosecutions. New York does. I dare Cy Vance to use it.
Wow. This is why she is a victim's advocate. Thank you. Thank you both so much. I want to tell you that we reached out to the Manhattan DA's office. They said, no comment. That's typically what they would say, so that's not unusual. Wendy, Jonathan, thank you both. We'll be right back.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.